Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rosen. Senator Badd.
I thank the chair, and what fortuitous seating. I could ask my neighbor right here. So low seniority has its benefits sometimes. Ms. Lank and all of you, thank you for being here today. Could you elaborate? I picked up a few ideas from your testimony, and again, thank you for all of your testimony. But could you elaborate on the obstacles rural businesses face when seeking financing from community banks, and share how banks like yours in Arkansas have helped these businesses navigate hurdles to access capital?
Many businesses struggle to get the capital that they need, especially with USDA lending, because there's requirements. Are you buying a business? Are you expanding a business? Are you constructing a new building? So there's limits on each one of those. So that is a struggle that they have. Also, if it's a startup business, it's really hard to get a community bank to take a risk on a startup business. It's just the facts. So there's definitely some area for improvement on helping them get what they need to get things started. A lot of them will lack business plans and a plan from A to B on what they want to do. And as Mr. Luce referred to, the SBDC is very good at assisting people in creating their business plans and moving on from there.
Very good. Mr. Barker, anything that your bank has done that's unique to help these folks overcome access to capital problems?
We are in a similar position. It's tough to get capital for those new businesses, and we rely on that SBDC to help with those business plans. They rely on us on counsel and giving them advice, but it would sure be helpful if there were some programs available to help us with some of those inputs to get those loans approved and guaranteed.
Continue with you, Mr. Barker. Given that rural businesses sometimes face a lot of cash flow problems, whether that's a seasonal fluctuation, particularly agriculture, how have your financial institutions created new products or service to help meet those needs, especially where there's fluctuations?
I don't know if we've created new products, but if something isn't broke, you don't have to fix it. So, I go back 47 years. I've been doing a lot of the same things during disasters or during cash flow crisis, and it's patience. You have to stay with these folks, work out a plan. How are they going to fix what was broken, figure out what that was. Maybe they make changes to their plan. Maybe they go into digital marketing. We have a lot of boutique dress shops now that are selling more online than they are in the storefronts right now. And so I think things change. We have to adapt, and we have to be ready to make any changes that we need to do for that.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Lank, anything you want to add dealing with clients that have fluctuating businesses and how you would approach them? I guess you would put that in your modeling, in your underwriting.
Correct. We do have some businesses that have seasonality to them.
Sure.
And that's just something that we look at when we're underwriting the loan. And we try to sit down and work with them the best we can. We'll help them problem solve whatever they're struggling with. If they're struggling with capital, there's a couple of third party's not the right word. There's some options that we have specifically with USDA, but.
Understood. Thank you. So one of the things that has been a concern of mine and many of my colleagues for quite a while is overregulation. That's been a significant driver behind banking consolidation, which has reduced the number of local community banks and limited options for small business owners, particularly in rural areas. Over the past decade, the U.S. has seen more than a 30% decline in community banks, driven by factors including regulatory pressures and increased compliance costs, policies like the Dodd-Frank Act, and to some extent, anticipation of Basel III, have led to heightened capital reserve, risk management, reporting requirements, which disproportionately impact smaller banks. Many have been forced to merge or close due to the inability to bear these costs. So the trend's particularly concerning in rural areas where community banks are often the lifeblood of the local economies, offering tailored loans for small businesses and agricultural ventures. With fewer small banks, rural entrepreneurs face greater challenges in accessing the capital they need. So how has consolidation driven by overregulation and other market forces, how has it affected the ability of rural businesses to secure loans, and what policies could help with this? Mr. Barker?
That's a big issue right now. All these new regulations that are hitting us hit the small banks harder than they do the big folks. I have 25 employees in 4 locations. I have to adhere to the same regulations that the big folks do in the metro areas of Iowa and on the east and west coasts. It comes down to the core processor charging for more data and things like that. The things that are coming, the rules, we're supposed to be gathering 80-some points of information for our loans. And in a large metro area, you can identify all those points of interest and nobody will know who that business is. In a town of 500 or 1,000 in Iowa, you list those points of that business, they're going to know exactly who it was and what was going on with that business. It's an invasion of privacy in our world, and we think it's way off base. And if there's any way to stop that, we would really appreciate it. The other thing we're finding all across the United States, obviously, of course, there's a history of too big to fail. In the small bank, we tread lightly on everything to make sure we follow those rules. An example of the blatant disregard is happening right now in the case of check fraud. It's rampant out there. The big banks are ignoring the rules and will not respond to the small banks in Iowa, Alabama. If there's a return check that is supposed to be returned for processing, they just don't respond. They ignore it. And I've had my peers in Iowa have to hire an attorney to threaten legal action just to get them to respond for a simple transaction that should go through bookkeeping. But they don't care. It doesn't matter to them. But if we were to do that, we would have an exam that would be very criticized. That's just an example of what we find.
It's very helpful. Chair, do I have time to allow Ms. Lank to elaborate on that same question? Yeah, thank you. Any thoughts on overregulation and how it disproportionately impacts a bank like yours?
What you don't know is I used to be a bank examiner.
So you talk about it from both sides.
Yeah. It is tough, especially as Mr. Barker mentioned, especially when you've got a small bank or you're in a really small town. It's hard to find talent and people that are educated in all of these regulations to be able to handle them all. You know, from what I know, everyone does the best they can. You know, I used to go in some banks and you could tell that they did not have any idea what you were talking about, but most of them did. Most of them did. So it's just, there's not a lot you can do. You've got to follow the rules. So you muddle through the best you can.
Yeah, understand. Thank you all for your time today and your testimony.